Blood Bowl, the real fantasy football. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today, we're going to discuss Blood Bowl. For those of you who are unaware, Blood Bowl is the Games Workshop American football board game. Now, the game features many different races, many different play styles, but we're going to start by talking about the lore behind Blood Bowl. So, in the old world, dwarves and orcs were fighting. They came across an ancient arena and opened a book. The book contained the rites to summon the god Nuffle. After opening the book, the dwarves and the orcs, they were mesmerized. All they wanted to do was play Blood Bowl. And quickly, the curse of Nuffle spread through the lands, infecting all who lived. And all everyone wanted to do was play Blood Bowl. The fighting stopped, for the only arena that mattered was the Blood Bowl arena. So, Blood Bowl obviously is a miniatures game, but additionally, there are video games of it. There's three. One's out already, the second one's out already, and the third one I heard is coming out pretty soon. The board game also has different modes. There's Dungeon Bowl, which makes it an interior game. So, like, the ball can bounce off the walls and things instead of just going out of bounds. And it makes it a little bit more chaotic. Additionally, I'm pretty sure Dungeon Bowl uses colleges instead of races for teams. And what I mean by that is like College of Life, which is the Wood Elves and the Halflings, opposed to it just being the Wood Elves as a team or the Halflings are a team. Additionally, there are like coalitions or alliances that have teams. So it might be like the Skaven and the Goblins as like the underworld denizens. It might be multiple undeads, etc., etc. There's a lot of variety in the different teams, just a lot of different groupings of the teams. So you can have a lot of different ways of playing the game, even with the same few models. Now, much like American football, the goal of the game is to run the ball into the end zone. That's how you score a point. And there are like three main types of armies, technically four, but the fourth one is more of like a joke armies. They're not as commonly played. So the three main categories of teams are bash teams. And bash teams are about hitting the other players, usually doing as much damage as they can, try to injure the other players of the enemy team so that they, are down people, and then you can kind of just run the ball in with impunity. But the downside of these teams is they're typically really slow and they're usually pretty bad at handling the ball. So a lot of plays such as throwing plays or dodging out of the way of other enemy players is rather difficult. The next category is finesse teams, and these teams rely on being able to throw the ball, being able to dodge out of the way, and kind of maneuver their way through the field without directly engaging the opponents, unless they have a advantage number. So they might, all form up on one side, try to really break through one side, get someone really far down the field where the slower basher teams can't get to them in one turn, throw the ball, or, if that guy already had the ball, just run it there, and then the next turn run it into the end zone. Then there's a hybrid of the two. For example, you might have half your team, these big, strong boys that, are terrible at holding the ball and are very bashy. And then you might have the other half of your team, which is rather agile and rather quick. So you can have a good mix of the two. And the last team is kind of the jokes team. They're known as the stunty teams. And usually they have like some really fun, silly mechanics. Like the goblins have a bunch of illegal weapons you can use. Like you can throw bombs at the enemies, or you can have pogo jumpers that jump over the enemies, or you can pick up the tiny team members and throw them. So like goblins, you can have them picked up by the troll and throw, or halflings can be thrown by the Trents. So they have sillier mechanics, but they're very bad overall. So they use their kind of silly mechanics and their like cheaty kind of special abilities to make up for the fact that they're pretty terrible mechanically, and that lets you still play them with some success despite the fact that they have way worse stats than the other three team groups that I mentioned. So if you live in an area that doesn't have any game stores, right? Blood Bowl might be a good option for you because while playing online is rather difficult for things like 40,000 and or Age of Sigmar without the use of something like the tabletop simulator, there are actually games designed to play Blood Bowl. You can get them on Steam, you can get them at most places. They're relatively cheap. Finding an online league is pretty easy to do. There are plenty of Steam groups, or you can find people on Reddit, or there are other little communities out there that play the Blood Bowl. The armies are pretty cheap to collect. You can get the Games Workshop ones, and the Games Workshop ones are about 50 bucks. Although you can find them, at secondhand stores for much cheaper than $50. I think I've seen them go for as low as like 35 or 30. And additionally, it's just generic fantasy models, right? So you can just go to another company. You can either change some models, kit bash something so that they don't carry any weapons and just say they're Blood Bowl characters. Or there are other providers of them. There are some great 3D models online for the ranges that are a bit older that are designed to look like football players and things. So there are a lot of options for much cheaper ways to get into the hobby if you already have access to 3D printing or you're willing to go for a third party option. But even if you do pick up a Games Workshop official set, as long as it's not like a brand new faction that's maybe a little harder to find, you probably can find them used or secondhand for pretty cheap. If you and a buddy want to get into the game, they do offer larger box sets with 2 factions. That has everything you need to play additionally. They go for new on Games Workshop site for about 150 bucks. But again, the game's been around for a while, so you can definitely find the larger boxes for much cheaper. If it's something you maybe are considering and you don't want to invest all the money, see if you can find a cheap way to play the game online. There are a few websites that'll let you play without paying anything. Obviously, the visuals will be awful. And you might be able to find a local league or something that'll let you play with their models to try the game out before buying it yourself. Goonhammer has some fantastic articles on the kind of the state of the game. I really like how the community has really kind of balanced or attempted to balance the game by making it where different armies will be in different tiers, and depending on what tier your army is in, you will get a certain number of like starting skills and things like that to make it a bit more fair for people who may be playing weaker factions. Being able to start off with more skills, so your starting players might be a little bit better, or maybe you start with additional money to buy players with to kind of make up for the fact that other players, factions might just objectively be a little bit stronger. I think that's a really kind of nice way of doing it. I kind of wish there was more stuff like that in Age of Sigmar or 40K. Personally, I haven't played anywhere that had some sort of handicap kind of system before. I think it's a good mechanic to kind of have. I think it's much more difficult to implement in something like Age of Sigmar and or 40K. Maybe you could do something like CP, but players don't just have skills, and factions are widely different. While some factions might benefit greatly from additional CP, other factions aren't super CP hungry, so they wouldn't get much from it. So, doing something like that isn't as easy in the other games, but it seems to be working well in Blood Bowl. But yeah, if you're looking for a video game that's Warhammer, or if you're looking for maybe an alternative use for some of your models, check out Blood Bowl. You might enjoy it, although be warned that the orc cheerleaders are a bit cursed. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what Blood Bowl army you either want to collect, or if you're already playing, what your favorite one is in the comments below. Thank you for watching.